Okay, today I'm going to be doing a speech on antibiotic stewardship. My name is Tristian Nabors, and I'm the MUW RN to BSN program. Here's my student ID. Alright, I'm going to start off with today asking y'all, what are antibiotics? Has anyone ever been sick?
Yeah.
Yes. By the way, I'm going to show my audience real quick. These are my community members. Alright, we got 5 of them. So when you're sick, you take antibiotics, right? And what we do a lot of the time when we take antibiotics, once we start feeling better, we stop taking them. What do we do with the leftover ones?
Save them.
That is what you're not supposed to do. Here's an example. This was amoxicillin. I found this in the cabinet. This has about 1/4 of the antibiotics left in it. This is what you're not supposed to do. This is the reason why we have antibiotic-resistant microorganisms that are killing people in the hospital as we speak. Okay? When you take an antibiotic, the doctor prescribes it to you to take it as he prescribes it. You get antibiotics when you're sick. What do you have to be sick with? Bacteria. So, taking antibiotics without knowing for sure, you're not a doctor. Okay? Antibiotics, they do not treat viruses or fungi. So, antibiotic stewardship, in a nutshell, is basically when you get prescribed antibiotics, you take all of them down to every last pill. When you start feeling better, you continue to take the antibiotics because they're all prescribed to you, so you don't stop in the middle of treatment. If you're, if the doctor's treating you, you don't ever stop in the middle of treatment and say, no, I'm feeling better. With antibiotic stewardship, that's basically taking your medicine as he tells you to. It's finishing them all the way through, taking every pill as prescribed, and making sure to remember to take your antibiotics even after you start to feel better. Alright, antibiotic resistance. That's when there's harmful bacteria and they're not being killed by the antibiotics that are prescribed. These are basically the bad guys who have developed weapons, and the antibiotics can't, contain them or stop them from replicating. So how does this occur? How do we get these resistant bacteria? Well, in us, we naturally have lots of different types of bacteria. We have good bacteria, we have bad bacteria. I'm sure everyone's heard of good bacteria. When you eat yogurt, that's good bacteria, right? Well, there's bad bacteria, and when antibiotics go in and kill all the good ones off, the bad ones take over sometimes if they're resistant to the antibiotics. I want to point this out. Antibiotics do not discriminate. They kill this bacteria, this bacteria, this bacteria. Doesn't matter what kind of bacteria you are. Antibiotics are made to kill all of them. They kill both the good and the bad. When, like I said earlier, when the good are killed off, that's when the resistant bacteria multiply and take over because all the good ones have died. The good ones basically keep the bad ones in check. Okay? And there's also been studies shown that even the bad bacteria can transfer good bacteria into bad bacteria. They can pass on the tricks of the trade, or there's some genetic DNA sharing to where good bacteria that you're supposed to have can become resistant to antibiotics as well. And we don't want this. This is one of my visual aids. Basically, this is just 6 different types of bacteria. I'm going to pass it around so y'all can look at it. Basically, it shows you there's millions of different kinds, all different shapes, colors, whatever you can imagine. next thing I want to talk to y'all about is this antibiotic-resistant bacteria. I'm going to give you a statistic. Each year in the U.S., at least 2 million people get infected with antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and 23,000 people die as a result. Okay, there's 23,000 people dying every year because the overprescription of antibiotics and people not taking them correctly, people not finishing the antibiotics correctly, this is what's caused these. Okay, this is the next visual aid I'm going to pass around. It has that statistic on it, and it's a little quick diagram to show you what it basically is. Okay, so why should you be concerned, right? When antibiotics are overprescribed, overtaken, and taken unnecessarily, that's when scary resistant strains of bacteria develop. Okay, have y'all ever heard of MRSA? Staph? Yep. You've heard that term, staph? Okay, staph is bad. That is bacteria that we cannot kill or control with antibiotics because it's become resistant to drugs. That's when we had to bring in the really tough ones. These are like, machine guns compared to handguns. They're vancomycin, all the mycin drugs, which you've never heard of, but they're extra tough on these. And we don't want to have to use those drugs unless we have to, because those have serious side effects, just like all antibiotics, but those have more. These bacteria-resistant antibiotics, they're useless against the ones that we can't control. People in the hospital die from this all the time, and like I said earlier, the CDC is estimating 23,000 people die from it a year. Okay, so the CDC has released a statement, Antibiotic Resistant Solutions Initiative. Okay, we are working toward improving antibiotic use to combat antibiotic resistance by heightening public awareness to improve antibiotic use. Our whole purpose of it today is I'm trying to make y'all aware that taking your antibiotics the right way is important, because I've been guilty of it too, not finishing we just found some today, amoxicillin in the cabinet. So that should have been taken all the way through to kill whatever specific bacteria the doctor was prescribing you. We got to teach people to take their medicine correctly. Never try to self-treat yourself with leftover antibiotics or giving leftover antibiotics to someone else. First off, a lot of us, there's smokers in the room. Sometimes you get a chest infection, right? Sometimes you feel like you'll say, oh, I think I have bronchitis. Well, you don't know for sure if your bronchitis is due to bacteria or virus. So if you were to go in your cabinet and take your antibiotics without knowing for sure it was, a viral infection you had, you could potentially cause some serious side effects and make your situation a lot worse. Fact is, you're not supposed to have these leftover antibiotics anyways. They're prescribed. You don't buy antibiotics over the counter, do you? You can't do that. You're not a medical doctor, so you can't self-diagnose yourself. And antibiotics only treat bacterial infections, and there's a lot of common illnesses that we might accidentally think we could take antibiotics for. For example, I'm going to pass around another picture. This is basically saying this is someone using a drill bit on a cantaloupe. That's not the right tool for the right job. You use a knife, right? So that's basically, it's pointless. I'm going to go over some of the common viruses and bacteria of what might have gotten you sick. Strep throat, it's bacteria. Whooping cough, bacteria. Urinary tract infection, bacteria. Sinus infection, what do y'all think? Bacteria. No, it's both. It could be either or. Bronchitis, like I said earlier, it could be a bacteria or a virus. Your ear infections, that could be bacteria or a virus. Your common cold, that's usually a virus. And the sore throat is usually a virus, except for strep, and flu is usually viral as well. So you don't treat the flu with antibiotics. I'm going to pass this around. Y'all can look at that. It's a diagram. Okay, this is the reasons why it's important to be aware. They cause a lot of side effects when taken, but the benefit sometimes outweighs the risk. If you have someone deathly ill with sepsis, you want to give them antibiotics, right? Common side effects: rash, nausea, vomiting, yeast infections. A lot of times women, can get yeast infections from these. Serious side effects include C. difficile infections. Okay, yes, and life-threatening reactions. C. diff is it's one of those bad bacteria infections that you don't want to get. Okay, has a distinct smell and makes the nurses' jobs harder because of the smell and how difficult it is to fight. There's also a statistic from the CDC. Reactions from antibiotics cause 1 out of 5 medication-related visits to the emergency department. So 1 out of 5 people who took something they didn't know it was due to an antibiotic, and they went to the emergency room for it. Here's another picture of one of these antibiotic-resistant drugs, bacteria, and he's basically escaping because the pills don't work on him anymore. So with that all being said, now that y'all are aware, here's tips on how to stay healthy. You wash your hands, you take medication carefully, you cover your mouth when you're coughing, and you stay home when you're sick. It's very important to stay home when you're sick because you don't want to get others sick. Is there any questions about antibiotic stewardship? Do you know what you're supposed to do when you get prescribed medicines now? Yes. Any questions?
Well, I could
Okay.
ask a question. Okay, so say you took an antibiotic for some sort of illness you had, and you took it for like 4 or 5 days, even though you're supposed to take it for a week. If you knew that it wasn't gone completely after that, could you be prescribed a similar medication and it get rid of it completely? Or would you still have antibiotic resistance?
That could be simply a doctor's error. He might not have prescribed you a long enough treatment. Sometimes doctors are humans, they make mistakes too. Sometimes they could prescribe you an antibiotic and not prescribe the needed length of time. The CDC is also offering antibiotic education to our prescribers. We're trying to cut back on doctors prescribing you things that you don't need, or misprescribing antibiotics when you don't need them. Okay, because that happens a lot more than you think. They'll either underprescribe them, someone who needs them, or someone who doesn't need them will get them, and that's what we're trying to cut back on. I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching my presentation. I'm just going to give a quick little spin around. All right.